Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank you and Ranking Member Wyden for holding this important hearing today, and thank you, Secretary Mnuchin, for testifying today about the Treasury Department's budget proposal. Mr. Secretary, when you testified to this committee last year about the Treasury's budget, I spoke about the importance of robustly funding Treasury Department programs that combat terrorist funding streams and other forms of illicit financing. I am pleased to see that the 2021 Treasury budget proposes increased funding for the Office of Terrorism and Financial Intelligence and for the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. These offices play a vital role in combating emerging national security threats. For example, terrorists and other transnational criminal organizations are increasingly using cryptocurrencies to finance their activities, due in no small part to the difficulty inherent in tracing these transactions and tying funds to specific actors. Mr. Secretary, how will the Treasury's proposed budget increases assist the Department in monitoring suspicious cryptocurrency transactions and prosecuting terrorists and other criminal organizations financing illicit activities with cryptocurrency?
Well, first of all, thank you, and thank the committee for the generous support on us funding increases in these areas over the last several years. We've really built up a very dedicated career staff. And specifically on cryptocurrencies, we are spending a lot of time on this on both an interagency basis and with the regulators. We're about to roll out some significant new requirements at FinCEN. We want to make sure that technology moves forward, but on the other hand, we want to make sure that cryptocurrencies aren't used for the equivalent of old Swiss secret number bank accounts. So we share your concerns, and you'll be seeing a lot of work coming out very quickly.
Well, thank you, and I would look forward to continuing to work with you about that. Another question. Under the previous administration, Treasury Department budgets contained proposals to improve the research and development tax credit for new and small businesses. As you know, the R&D tax credit supports the efforts of startups to invest in the development of new innovative products that lead to job creation and economic growth. That's why I've introduced bipartisan legislation, along with Senator Tillis, that would modernize and expand the R&D tax credit for startups. Mr. Secretary, for this year's budget, did the Treasury consider including any proposals to improve the R&D tax credit for small businesses? And would the Treasury be willing to look at our bipartisan proposal to see how we can work together to support entrepreneurs?
We would very much look forward to working with you on that, and I'll have my office follow up to make sure we're on top of it.
That would be great. What we're really focused on is those companies that don't have a tax liability yet but are making these critical investments. And so last question. I'm a strong supporter of bipartisan legislation championed by Ranking Member Wyden that would permanently extend tax cuts and cut red tape for small craft brewers in New Hampshire and across the country. Last year, along with Senators Roberts, Menendez, and Daines, I was on a task force that recommended, on a bipartisan basis, passing permanent relief for craft brewers. As part of this effort, it is vital that the Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade, which is, as you know, within the Treasury, receive increased funding to clear the backlog of approval requests for new beverage formulas and labels. I continue to hear from New Hampshire brewers that delays in approvals are slowing their business growth despite the additional funds that Congress has provided and years of work to cut down on the backlog. Mr. Secretary, can you explain to the committee what resources the Treasury's budget would provide to the Bureau to address this backlog, and will you commit to continuing to work with Congress on this issue?
Yes, yes, and yes. And let me just say, if Congress wants to do anything to simplify the label approvals, I would look forward to working with you on that as well. And I know there's tremendous bipartisan support for the craft brewers.
And as I understand it, the budget proposes $5 million in funds to accelerate the processing of formula and label applications. So it seems that there's recognition of the issue in your budget proposal, and I just would I think what I've heard is a commitment to working with us on...
I've personally looked at this label issue, and we're trying to figure out how to streamline it.
Okay. Let's keep working on that together. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator